Before we begin, thank you very much to Evelyn M. for joining the Patreon campaign. Thank you very much for the contribution. I keep saying it every single time now, like, just thank you very much for helping to keep the channel alive. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I genuinely mean it. If it wasn't for you guys and your generosity, I wouldn't be able to do this anymore. So thank you for everyone who wants to pitch in. And keep in mind, even if you just pitched in $1 just to make me say something, please consider sticking around, because I am working toward big unlockable things if the Patreon campaign starts hitting bigger numbers. So keep that in mind. And one of the things you can unlock with a Patreon membership is review requests at the highest level, and we have one of those today. So I was asked to go over all the different hotshot designs. Now, we kind of just did this with Bumblebee. And that was just kind of like an overview and an evolution of how his design has changed and adapted over the years. This is a little bit different because we are actually going to be doing something a little bit different. I want to give this a different flavor. Number one, I'm hitting every incarnation of hotshot I can find. I'm sure there's a few stragglers here and there, but for every, like, I'm literally, like, we're even doing repaints on this one. Also, to make this feel a little bit different, I'm going to be doing what a lot of mid-range level YouTubers do. I'm going to steal from a more popular YouTuber. I'm going to do this Maximilian Dude style, where I'm going to rate them as we go. So, I'm actually going to give like a quick 1 out of 10 rating for each hotshot that is put in front of me. So you'll know that it's not all hatred for hotshot here. There is actually some good things about the character, and I'm man enough to say good things about the character. So first off, let's get it to the original Armada hotshot. 1 out of 10, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 10, 1 out... That'd be a really short video and very petty me. Let's, we'll just rewind that back. All right, so let's do this for real. How about that? So the original hotshot, guess what? For the original Armada hotshot, I'm gonna say 9 out of 10. Genuinely, this is actually a really good design. I like the color flow. I like how it's broken up with the silver harness and the chest. The forearms being a different color is a nice little touch to throw some extra color in the midsection. I like the high shoulders. Here's the thing with hotshot. When you put it in toy form, it is really hard to get right. It's very easy to make the yellow look way too play school and to really bring the toy down and kind of take away from its more cool aspects. But when it's in art form and you can kind of tone back the yellow and you can actually kind of, play with the colors and make them a lot, figure out the right balance and not make them like eye gouging, then you're working with a lot better version of hotshot. And it's a very, it's cool. What I remember about seeing hotshot for the first time was just kind of how surprised I was. I was very surprised by the design because, keep in mind, the original Transformer line, the robots weren't really designed with any particular design intention behind them. They're all just kind of different takes on, how you would imagine a robot to be. And even into Beast Wars, that was true, though they were a little bit more animalistic. It was extremely rare for Transformers to have something that was kind of like inherently based on some other Earth design or some other aesthetic. So when hotshot came out and he's clearly designed after a race car driver, that was actually kind of interesting. And you can see that with the 6-point harness. You can see that with the round helmet with the visor that comes up and down. He's got a lot of different things going on to kind of inform you of his character in his design, which was not a common thing in the least back in the day. So I always felt like this is a strong character design, and it's unique, especially amongst its time. Since then, we've had a lot of designs that speak of the character, but this is just, this was actually really good. Bring it to toy form, and it's got a lot of problems. It's hard to get right, but in animation, in just overall design, works really well. I could say something similar about the repaint version. I don't think it's quite as strong, though. That's the weird thing, is that it's going for more of a hot rod homage, but I think a little bit is lost. I think making the yellow a little bit more primary across his chest is not the right call here. It's still not bad. Like, I would probably go somewhere like a 7 or an 8 out of 10 on this design. I just think the original Hotshot colors are stronger. Now, again, in toy form, I would actually prefer these colors, but we're not judging the toy. We are judging just sheerly, like, how effective it is as a design. So this one, I don't know. I think the colors balance is a little bit off here, so I'm not quite as into it. At least, you know, at least not anymore. No, it used to be. Moving on to Energon. Wait, we have more Armada, don't we? Ha ha ha. So, I also wanted to judge the original version. And the original version, I am going to put somewhere at like a 6 out of 10. Toy-wise, it looks like it would have been a better figure because it's fully articulated. You know, you can even see things like thigh and bicep swivels worked in, which would have been really rare at the time. Just structurally, physically, this was an impossible design to make. Especially because they didn't know how to make the arms lock into place the way they are mounted right there. So the design had to go through an 11th hour makeover to get what we got now, which is why the articulation is so bad and why the gimmick is so intrusive. But we could have had this linebacker with the crotch flap thing. I think there's something in me kind of likes the wide stance, but it's that belly and crotch flap that really do it in for me. Yeah, so I can't get behind that one after all. Now let's move on to Energon, and now we get to some rough stuff. So a third of the vehicle mode hangs off the back. The rest of it is clumped up in the legs. The overall body is basically kind of just a gray block. It's a big departure from the previous Hotshot. Aside from being yellow and having a visor on his helmet, he really doesn't look like the original character, which is a little bit disappointing. And I just don't think it's a very strong design. I really don't think it's a strong design. It's like a 5. You know, we're like at a 5 out of 10 on this one. I don't know. This is another one where, like, even in toy form, it, again, like the previous Hotshot, it gets worse. But even in animation, I feel like the proportions don't really work. The arms are too thin. The big panel pauldrons. And again, like, it just kind of feels like the car is just like secondary. Like, it's just like detail that just doesn't really work into his robot mode. So it's not really working for me. It's not really working for me. So it's a 5. It's just kind of there. The repaint is a little bit. So it's certainly a lot brighter. I will give it that. It is a lot brighter. I'm a little bit torn because on one hand, the silver is actually kind of interesting choice, but then they had to go and attempt the Hot Rod homage again with the yellow and the red. It does kind of bring his original colors back a little bit, but it doesn't really. I think it's too much. I think it's a little bit too vibrant. I think I'm still at a 5. I like the silver for the vehicle mode a lot better. And it does break up his colors a little bit more, with the yellow still incorporated, because you have to have yellow on a Hotshot until, give it a minute. But overall, like, I think it balanced. I think what the toy has gained, it has lost in other directions. So I'm still kind of like at a 5 on this one. Now, we move on. Haha, my beauty. I don't think, if you watch this channel long enough, I don't think you have any surprise whatsoever when I say this is 10 out of 10. I love the color balance on this one. The blue and the red work really, really well. I'm happy they got away from the yellow because they tried to make Landmine the kid appeal in Cybertron, and I don't think that quite worked. But it gave Hotshot a chance to kind of stretch his wings a little bit. It also helps that in Japan, Galaxy Force was supposed to be a completely different series, so they didn't feel the need to put in another yellow car. So we got a blue Hotshot instead, thankfully. And I love the detail work on this design. I love how there is actual hot rod homages. The blaster exhausts on the forearms are there. The shape of the shins That is there. And of course, his cyber key gimmick will make hot rod style fins fold out. But it doesn't really rely on being a hot rod homage. Even when you repainted him red and orange, it still kind of kept to some of his original detailing. So it's just a really nice design with a lot of really cool design elements to it. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. And then we move into a very surprising touch. We're not going to the repaint. We are going to the retooling, and that is the Cybertron Defense Hotshot. And I do love the cleverness that the Cybertron Defense group all have names that work well for their original forms and then for their military vehicle forms. It's actually a really clever way of creating the three and kind of twisting the formula a little bit. That said, he's got some really good designs. The bulkier style doesn't really fit Hotshot, but you know that's kind of what they're just kind of going for, like a weird aesthetic on these. I'm not as big of a fan of it. It's got the right colors, it's got a lot of the right design elements to it. I just don't think you should. I don't think there should be any need to make Hot Rod chunky, at least not like military vehicle chunky. We're gonna get chunky that works later on, but for now, it's still a cool design. It's still a cool design, but I'm only somewhere at like a 7 or an 8 on him. You know, I'm not quite there. I'm not in love with it like I am the original. Animated was supposed to have its own take on Hotshot, and remember, Bumblebee being a prominent member of the cast makes Hotshot a little bit tricky to incorporate, so Derek tried to split the difference a little bit. There's obviously a lot of Armada Hotshot in him, but they worked in some of the Excellion Blue from the Cybertron release. And I'm going to be honest, like physically, I like the design. The design physically works, not only to be very different from Bumblebee, but also to just kind of play with the original concept of Hotshot, you know, and make a nice appearance out of it. But I'm not quite a fan of the yellow on baby blue. That's throwing me off a little bit. I really kind of wish this just went with Cybertron aesthetic and just went with Cybertron blue and red. You know, at least because Bumblebee's in the same series. So, still like it though. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think that just knocks it down a couple pegs. I'm at like an 8 out of 10 on this design. Because I do think it looks really, really good. I think it plays with Hotshot's original aesthetics really, really well. That blue is just not hitting me the right way. And I don't think it's the blue's fault. I think it's the yellow's fault. You know, and in a series with Bumblebee in it, I think steering clear of the yellow probably would have been a better choice. But, you know, you try to stick to the original a little bit in this case, I guess. We move on to Prime Hotshot. Wow. We are finally here. We went from replacing Bumblebee in the series to literally just being Bumblebee's repaint. Well, you can talk to Cliff Jumper about that sometime. So, yeah, it's Cybertron colors, but it's the Bumblebee body. So it doesn't really strike as a Hotshot, does it? It's got the flame job, which actually harkens back to the 2001 Hotshot, who is not designed to be that character in any way, shape, or form, so we didn't include him on the list. It's just the name, really. But he does still have the fold-down goggles. So he still has a little bit of the original Hotshot in there. I'm not crazy about this one. I do think it looks better than the standard Bumblebee in this design, but yeah, I don't think Hotshot should ever have that hood chest. I don't think that's ever his look. So it really just feels like Hotshot in name, but it's not horrible looking. I'm like at a 6, I think. I think this one's like a 6 out of 10. And I think that's being maybe even a little generous with it, because it really is not quite Hotshot that we expect. Oh, but don't worry, we can go further, because this is named Hotshot. This is Age of Extinction Hotshot, loosely based on the fact that they were starting to just make him the blue car of the Autobots. You might realize the problem here in that the robot's design is clearly modeled after G1 tracks because Corvette. That makes a lot of sense now, doesn't it? White helmet and red face will tell you that immediately. Why they didn't just come up with the name Trax or some variant of the name Trax that they could copyright, I genuinely don't know. But for whatever reason, they decided to name dump Hotshot onto him, and it... So here's the thing. Even if I just take this without comparison to previous Hotshots, Even if I just take this at face level, I'm still at like a 3. I really do not like the design on... I really don't like the design on the figure. I'm not a fan of like the duster coat look, and for crosshairs that kind of invokes his character, but toy wise, and I have to judge toy wise because that's all this hotshot has. It really is just an excuse to just have gigantic chunks of vehicle hanging off with no attempt to transform it. So yeah, I'm not a fan. I am not a fan. As a hotshot, this is a 3. IDW hotshot. What happens if hotshot was in Transformers Prime? And that is essentially how you have IDW hotshot. He doesn't put in too many appearances. He does exist though, so we do mark it up. I do like how it looks. He does keep some round aesthetic while still being sharp. It looks like a lot of ways they've modernized Bumblebee over the years. Is it too sharp? Does it go too far? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, that's going to be a choice of aesthetic here. I kind of like it. It definitely is in the same vein of a lot of those IDW designs, but I still see a lot of G1 Armada hotshot in there. I'm somewhere... Sharp designs like this are very much a mood for me. Sometimes I'm in the mood for them, sometimes I'm not. At the moment, I'm feeling kind of like an 8 out of 10. Like, because it is. It's not, I don't think it's hitting like this, like, close to design perfection that the original hotshot kind of hit, but it's getting its own identity across at the same time. It's hotshot, but I can tell where it came from. So, somewhere around an 8 out of 10. Maybe a 9 if you're in the mood for the sharp, like Prime style aesthetic at the time. And we move into one of the most surprising ones. This is Rescue Bot's Academy hotshot. And here, no one is more surprised than I when I say I think this is 10 out of 10. I think this is absolutely a 10 out of 10. I think this is a perfect way of adapting the original hotshot design while still avoiding being too much like Bumblebee. You make the visor a permanent spot, like much more prominent in his design. It means he can still have a yellow helmet and not look like Bumblebee in any way. That higher emphasis on red over yellow separates him out from Bumblebee. I like turning like the 4-point harness into like engine exhaust pipes. Like that actually works for the design. And making him an off-road vehicle actually succeeds in making a chunky hotshot that also makes sense for the character. So this all works really, really well. It's the kind of design I hope gets a Generations release in the future, especially because we don't really have enough monster trucks or off-road vehicles. So yeah, I'm emphatic 10 out of 10. I actually really, really love Rescue Bot hotshot's design. We got a few stragglers here that didn't really appear in major media, but we need to cover them anyway. So the Generation Selects one does take inspiration from the Cybertron Defense hotshot, and honestly, I don't think it works. I know a lot of people who swear by this, but I think it's really just the vehicle mode that's trying to make this work. The robot mode, let's be honest, really doesn't look anything like that one. The shoulders are way too small. He didn't have the car front chest thing. It's a nice idea in theory, but it really feels like this homage got crowbarred in. Visually, it looks fine, but it just feels like hotshot for the sake of making hotshot. I'm like at a 5 on him, because it just doesn't feel right, Even if it looks okay, it doesn't feel right. One other one I wanted to throw in, because we're throwing in literally every major hotshot I can find, the Shattered Glass hotshot also exists, and they're using the unreleased smokescreen repaint, which I actually really like the look of on that mold. So I thought it was a great way of like bringing it back to make that the Shattered Glass depiction. I'm somewhere, I don't think it hits the right note that the original one does, but I do like it overall. I'd probably be like at an 8 on him. I don't know why it works for me. It just does, And to finish this list off, there's one more that we have to talk about. Pretty much the most prominent, the most important of all of the hotshot designs. I think you will agree with me when I point out Happy Meal hotshot is unequivocally, undeniably a 10 out of 10 design, peak toy efficiency. So, that is my ranking of the hot shots over the years. Believe it or not, the design of the toy the character I have absolutely no problem with. I think it's actually really cool and really unique, especially for its time. But, it's just when you make it into a toy that it stops working as well as it should. I'm trying to talk over my dog barking at a delivery guy so I can actually do this outro in peace, and the dog is having none of it. So, we'll leave it off there. Thank you very much for watching. See, I can give hotshot compliments too. I can be unbiased. Now join me next week where I continue my lifelong commitment to trashing this character. So, thank you for watching. I will see you next time.
We parlay with the captain.
You think a werecroc is going to listen to elvish rules of piracy?
Of course it would be the freaking elves that invented parlay.
I had to think of a quick replacement for the French.
Oh.